Hey there, Wendy here with Jazzydoodledesigns, and today by request, I've been asked by a subscriber to show you how I approach pages, how I decide maybe what color palette to use, or how do I know where to start, and how to be less intimidated by blank pages. So I thought I would pull out two different books. I have Brown Bear Wood here that is an extremely detailed page. And then I pulled out a Hannah Carlson, and I thought we would look at maybe this page, this kitty cat page. And I'm going to talk about my approach to each. Let me stick something in here. Okay. So I want to talk to you about my different approaches to these kind of projects. I'm going to also include in my discussion this Disney book. So let's first talk about if you're going from inspiration. So we'll talk about the Disney one. So let me get to a page I haven't colored. Okay. So picking a page I haven't colored, we have our inspiration page. Now this applies to the spotting book as well, but the inspiration book for that is really big, so it makes it hard to get in camera. So I'm going to use this one for simplicity. When you're tackling a book like this, which is inspiration, you want to look at what colors are the overall colors here. And then you go to your charts, your swatch. This is how I do it. I go to my swatch charts, and I apologize for the glare. I'll try and keep it at a minimum. But I am going to look at, okay, we've got this color green. And then I look and see if the pencils I'm looking at have those colored greens. Now let's say I was looking at polychromos, and I see that these are kind of more of these earthy greens, so like this one might work. I could make these work for this. We've got some yellow greens, so that would work. We've got kind of these deeper greens over here. Let's look at the sky. What about this purple? Can I make any of these purples work? To me, this is kind of more of a lavender. And so I would look at this and I would say, well, maybe, maybe not. And I would flip through all of my different ones and I would say, oh, well, I don't know. This to me, this color here could be this color here. And then this grayed lavender, that's actually pretty close to this, especially if I put a little bit of the Parma Violet with it. Right? And so I just look at all these things and I say, okay, that's actually a pretty good match here. And for the little crocodile. And what about this hot pink? Do I have a hot pink? And so I'm looking at what's available to me. And I flip through all of my charts. And sometimes I'm like, oh, would be a great Prismacolor page. But maybe the next page, like this one, I used my Holbein pencils, and I felt like I had good matches for the colors that were in here, because Prismacolor doesn't have a lot of these more vibrant greens. It has this one and a little bit of parrot green, and while I could make that work, it's not quite as matchy-matchy. So that is one way that I work and try and find the medium or the pencils that best match up. Another thing I look at is what if a page has like this, like a big expanse of one color? Would a pan pastel be a better medium? Because I could cover this whole broad section here with that lavender and then go in with my pencils and add some of the highlights and the leaves and things like that. So those are the kind of decisions that I'm looking at when I'm trying to match. The next step that I do is once I have my pencils, then I go in and I try and, now obviously I was working for the spotting book and not this one, but I would see if I could duplicate this color by actually taking my 2 pencils and saying, okay, here is this green. What do I need to add to it to kind of get a little bit more grayed out version of that? And so then I might play around with, well, what about 70% French gray? And then I lightly go over it and I look at that and I say, well, that's a little too dark. So then I would go in with the next lightest one and I would try that. Or I might say, oh, that's just too brown in general. I need more gray. And so then I would pull a gray color. So that's how I'm going about trying to match specific colors if I don't have that exact color. Okay, so I kind of play around with that. Once I have a general idea of what mediums I'm going to use, then how do you tackle this page? In this book, I have a tendency to just start in the upper left-hand corner and kind of work my way across and down. So I might go in and start the tree and do the tree. And then I go in and I might do the sky. And then I'm going to go in and do the roof. I almost always save the little detail-y stuff for last. So I would go in and do the tree, I would do the sky, I would do the main part of the house, maybe put in this lighter color down on the house and save the bricks. Now, I'm not going to promise that sometimes I don't just tackle the bricks right then and there, but I would say more often than not, I will come back to them. Then I come in and I put in all of the green, right? And then I go in and put in the bridge, and then I put in the path, and then I put in the water. And then once I have the main bulk of the page done, then I go in and I fine-tune my tree. And I say, oh, I need it more dark in this spot. I need a little more yellow here. I need a little brown there. Now you can choose to make all those detailed decisions when you do the tree. That is certainly a way to do it. I'm just letting you know how I do it so I don't get too overwhelmed. Because what I find is the more you have on the page, the more comfortable you get. And so by putting your base layers down, then you go in and you reassess and you say, okay, now I have the lavender, but I'm missing this yellow. Or maybe you have the yellow, but you're missing some of these, the details of it, right? So then you bring in another color and lightly put those in. And you do the little latches and you do the door handles and you do the little fiddly stuff. That's how I tackle these pages so that I don't get too overwhelmed. So that being said, I would do the same thing in this book. Now this book also has an inspiration page that you could choose to use or not. In the book, if you go down to the woods today, and there's a whole flip through and discussion on this book, but I would tackle this much the same way. I might choose to start with the tree here. And I get the tree going, then I get the sky going, then I go ahead and go in with the snow. And I would tend to treat each one of these little sections as its own little picture, so that I'm not freaking out about all of the detail, because there is a lot of detail. But in my experience, the more of the bulk of the page you can get done, then, oh, Ellie's gonna stick her nose in. Say hi, Ellie. Can you say hi? She's like, what are you doing to me? Okay, off she goes. So it's overwhelming to think of all these little things. So don't think about all of them. Tackle the snow. Tackle the lightest color in your snow, and then work your way around. Tackle all of the wood pieces. So that is another way. You could go in and just tackle all of the brown things, and then all of the blue things, and all of the red things. That's another way to do it. I personally understand that that is how some people work. I tend to be a little more systematic as opposed to all of the brown things. And there are times when I kick myself because I think to myself, Wendy, you had all of the brown pencils. Why didn't you do this piece? Or why didn't you do the other brown piece? But I just think that sometimes you get overwhelmed with the details. And so you have to narrow it down, either by doing it by color or doing it by section. I'm only going to color this section now. I'm only going to color these little critters. I'm only going to color the sky. And allow your mind to forget about this part of the page while you're coloring the sky. I think if you can break it down that way, a book like this will not overwhelm you. Now, I do want to talk for a minute about what happens if you don't have the money for the inspiration book, or maybe you just don't like working that way. You want to create your own colors, but you find it intimidating. The way I approach a page like this is I look at what are the main focal points of the page, and I try and suss out, like, okay, I want a brown tree, I want blue snow, or I want purple snow, or pink snow. Make those kind of decisions. What color will your sky be? If your sky's blue, your snow should be blue. You're the boss of your own coloring book, but generally speaking, snow reflects that which it's around. So if you have a pink-purple sky, you should probably have pink-purple snow. But once you make that decision, then that can influence, okay, what would look good with pink and purple? Then you would say, well, maybe I want to stay in those cooler tones, so I'm going to be using turquoises and violets and pinks and purples in my page to make it more cohesive, and then add small bits of pops of color from the warm side, maybe such as some yellow for the lights, right? And add that to your page. So that's kind of how I would tackle a book like this. Now, in this book, I go in and I say, what is my main focal point? Or another way of looking at that is, what do I know I want a color to be? So if I know 100% that I want a dark sky, then in my mind, I know that I need to do a light cat. If I know that I want a dark cat, then I know I need a light sky. So that's kind of how my thoughts are in my influence. So let's say, for the sake of argument, I know for a fact that I want a dark blue sky here. So then I say, okay, what would look good with dark blue? So I tell myself, you know what would look good is a gray cat. So I'm like, okay, so now I know dark blue here, gray here. What color should all of my jewels be to complement that? So you have a big piece here right up next to the dark sky. So in my mind, I am going to be looking for more brighter colors in here. Maybe some yellows and golds would look really nice. Or maybe, probably what I would be thinking is maybe more like some purples with our lighter tones, and then bringing in some darker purples to make it look more dimensional. But then I have blue, purple, gray. Those colors all look fantastic together, right? What I wouldn't want to do is, let's say I decided I wanted a black cat. Would I really want to go in with a dark purple stone here? Maybe not, because then it depends on how much I want this piece to be the focal. So when you're picking colors, you've got to ask yourself, do I want the jewelry to stand out and be significant, or do I want the cat's face to be significant? So if let's say I wanted to give him like glowing green eyes, and I want you to be drawn to the glowing green eyes, then I might want to do like a black cat and a dark gray background, not as dark as the cat, but maybe like a mid-gray, to where the background and the cat become less focused, and then the eyes just glow, right? And those are the significant points. If I want the jewelry to be significant, then I want those to be bright, vibrant colors, or at least pop off the page. So I could do something like, if I did gold here and red, then I would want more like maybe a light blue background, and a light gray cat might make that work. You use your contrast to illustrate what you think is the most important part of your picture. So if I did this in green with the green eyes glowing and a glowing gemstone, right, and maybe reflected some light in here, your face is going to be drawn here. And that's what I'm looking for. So I want all the rest of this stuff to fade into the background. So what I wouldn't want to do is, if I'm wanting this to glow, put a bright yellow background. Because then your eye's like, what do I look at? Do I look at the bright background, or do I look at this area, right? Now, if I want the highlights to be here on the jewelry, then I might want to color the eyes more of a neutral tone, where they don't have as much significance. Not that they blend in and don't look like he has eyes, but you don't want to do them some bright, vibrant color that pulls your eye to them, because you're wanting to draw the eye to the jewelry. Maybe that's the message you want to send, is that this cat is royal. So you might want to do some royal colors and have the cat in the background be nominal. Maybe you want to emphasize that this is a sinister cat. You could have, lightning in the background and like menacing colors like blacks and grays and blues in the background, and then bring out your cat somehow. Does that make sense? How we're going to figure out what we want to say in our picture, what we want the focal point to be. Do we want our kitten to look cute and charming and be all pastel and royal and like she's a little lady princess, or do we want her to look like a sorceress cat? Because the color influences, or the color choices you make influence that. But I guess my point in today's is that this cat takes up 3/4 of this page. The color I decide is going to dictate all of the other colors. Whereas in a book like this one, we have a whole different obstacle, because what is the focal point here? So if I want to make this bear the focal point, we don't want to do 35 different colors on this page. I would probably try and pick a theme of colors and have him be like somehow with lighting, maybe have some light around him, and then have these in a little bit darker colors to draw your eye in, or maybe use this, how they've framed it with the tree. Use some really dark colors here to kind of put a spotlight on our bear. But in a page like this, don't be afraid to use fine liners. Don't be afraid to use markers, because you could rapidly become very overwhelmed if you're not using quicker mediums. Now, some people enjoy spending 2-3 weeks on a page. Nothing wrong with that at all. That is so not me. I'm not that patient, y'all. So if I was picking this, I might use a faster medium to do all of the brown in this tree trunk, like with a pan pastel, or with a Tombow marker, or a Sharpie super tip. And then use my colored pencil to even it out and to add the detail work. So I hope that you found this helpful. The next thing I'm going to do is literally do a color along in this book. I think I chose the nighttime page, the bear's bedtime page. This is the page that I'm going to be coloring. So I hope to see you there. But I hope you found it helpful discussing different ways of deciding on palettes. Let me know in the description box if you want more videos like this, because I can show you where to go about finding inspiration and how to incorporate that in your page as well. Until the next time, take care. Thank you for watching another video from Jazzydoodledesigns. If you enjoy adult coloring content, please consider subscribing. You can now find me on Instagram and Facebook as well. I welcome all comments and suggestions. Don't forget to like the video before you go. And until next time, take care.